everybody. Tonight we're going to be talking about the 2-track mechanical pivot slider by STSEDC. I recently saw this on the Facebook group Daily Fidget. One of my friends posted about this and I was curious, and we're going to be taking it apart, comparing it, measuring it, weighing it, doing all the usual things, and maybe go into a little bit more depth about what is interestingly unique about this. Stick around. We'll try to have some fun. Okay, so like I said, I got this idea to buy this from a friend who bought one and put it up on the Daily Fidget. It was about a month ago, and it didn't receive any flack. Nobody said it looked like a copy or of anything, and I thought, well, that's a good sign. Right away I thought, well, it's pretty similar to this, but it does have some obvious differences, the body shape, the number of tracks, and I thought, well, I'll take a chance. He said it was pretty good. Nobody, like I said, put up any resistance about it being a copy, and I bought this one. And I have to say right off the bat, just to save you some time, we'll take it apart and do the usual, but I would avoid this one. It may sound good, but if I take off this tape, it gets worse, and there's not much that can be done about this. That's just poor design. So, yeah, I would just maybe steer clear of this one. Incidentally, right after I bought this, one showed up on INS Work store, this thing. And the internals at least look kind of similar. And I try to avoid reviewing copies. So I don't know which one of these came first. I don't know if the one I just showed you at INS Works has, like the thing that's different about this also is that it has magnets. I saw photos of this taken apart and video of it working. The other one I just showed you, there is no video of it and there is no photo of it taken apart. I knew this was significantly different than this because of the 2 tracks, and when I saw it taken apart, I could see that there's magnets in here. I wondered what that had to do with it. And the other thing is the internal layout of the mechanicals, the springs and balls is different in this than that. But like I said, I try to avoid reviewing copies, but we don't know enough about the one I just showed you. We just don't know enough about it yet. So I'm going to go ahead and put this up and leave it up, and I'd be curious if somebody else gets that one. Very curious to see a review about it. There's no real other way to find out. I don't know what else to say. So, with that understanding, let's go ahead and move forward with this. I should say to my friend that posted about this on Facebook, his review was pretty good. His opinion of it was pretty good. I don't mean to poop all over his opinion. That might have just been his initial opinion. This still might be really, really good for some people. One of the things I didn't mention about it that attracted me was the fact that the Guardian has such sloped, smooth edges and kind of not a square edge up here. And it kind of makes holding on to the bottom part difficult because I'm really only holding on to it with the tip of this finger and pressure against this finger. So it's kind of easy to fall out of your hand, a little tricky to hold, might be slippery for some, and with this having better, more squared off edges, does make it a little bit easier to spin around. I've never quite, either one of these, I can't quite spin it around all the way with one thumb rotation. What I tend to do is go up, down, and then finish it with this finger. Line everything back up. So yeah, that might just, based on that alone, this might be more worthwhile than this. But I think once we take it apart and I talk about it a little bit more, just the overall machining and build quality of this is pretty superior to this one. Yeah, but no offense to my Facebook friend. So this just came in your standard generic plastic case. I believe there was a card, sort of a little what would you call it, COA, but I don't really keep those. And then we have a couple extra balls, a couple extra springs, a couple extra screws, 2 screws of each kind, which is really good. They messed up on the balls though. I mean, they didn't give you enough to fully change out all the balls in this. They also didn't give you enough springs to really fully utilize. Like, so if you bought this and it was your first one, you wouldn't have any other springs to play with. So, shame they didn't include more parts. I like the screws in there. I like having the screws for sure. But, yeah. Lose points for not having the rest. All right, let's get weights and measurements out of the way. There are some magnets in this, but we'll weigh it 2 different ways and see if it changes. About 92 grams. See if we can balance it up here. No. 92 grams, roughly. That should be close enough. Now, dimensions. About 50 millimeters. 22 millimeters. About 14. And fully extended, 70. Okay, we'll take it apart last. Let's go ahead and do some comparisons. I don't have many mechanical pivoting sliders. I do, but they don't really follow this. Even these two don't really match up. This one rotates in the middle, you see, and this one rotates like that. But this is the Lollipop. And if you can get your hands on one of these, this is one of my favorites. This is a very nice mechanical pivot slider. I did see one used on AliExpress, and that wouldn't stop me. So that's a good one. But anyhow, let's go ahead and compare these side by side. Thickness, end shot, open them up. Okay. Whoops. That's hard to do with your left hand. Holy mackerel. Okay. Now, some other ones that share familiarity with this, but they're not mechanical, they're magnetic, would be this, which is the Chenyu Battle something. I'll put the name up there. I always forget what the heck this one is. So it rotates in the middle too. Now, if you put the balls in there, 4 balls in there, it only goes back and forth. This, let's just do the comparisons here. Side by side. Okay, and the next one, I think a lot of people have the pig nose slider. A loud clap. And just once again, I don't know if we did these side by side or not, the Chenyu, the Guardian. And lastly, I always pick these two out because a lot of people have them. The Top B, My Metal Toys DZ. And the Mackie CP3. Okay. Okay, it's time to take this puppy apart. One of the first things I noticed, now again, this is pretty sloppy, and you won't be able to see it, but I can see when I look down in here the actual movement, and I'll show you what's causing that when we take it apart. But first off, we got some flat tip screws here. I'm using a 9/64. I don't like these kind of screws at all because it's so easy to slip off the sides. When these come out, they tend to want to jump onto the magnets. Okay, now when I take these two out, I'm going to continue to apply pressure here, keep the whole thing together. There we go. Whoops. Okay, there we got the screws. Now what I'm going to do is, I know that the balls and springs are sort of pointing downward because those are the detents. I'm going to turn this over, place it down on a table, and then just lift off the top. And what that reveals is the internals at the top. I have to be careful because these two side pieces, well, they're loose, but they're conveniently held in place by those magnets, which does make assembly and disassembly a lot easier than with the Chenyu. So here you have two springs and two balls in the middle, and what we'll do, all you have to do is slide these off. And then we'll just dump this stuff out. Two springs, two balls, put those up here. Odd thing about this, when it came with only one spring and one ball loaded in here instead of two. And they don't give you enough springs, they don't give you enough balls. The one spring in here was 0.3 wire diameter. Okay, that means it's fairly springy. All the other springs are 0.25 wire diameter, which make them a lot softer. And they only give you one of the strong ones and then a handful of the softer ones. So, not good. You know, you should, like I said again, you should get all the parts that you need. But here we have the part in the middle that turns. We've got two springs and balls oriented that way. On the Chenyu, they're oriented this way. You got two springs and balls, but they both run along the same track. Here we got them separated. This part is covered up by some tape, which helps this perform a lot better. When the tape's not on it, it's not very good. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove the tape like I did before. I may or may not put it back on. I already buggered it up a little bit. When I first peeled off this tape, all these 4 screws were virtually unscrewed. And you would never know that if you didn't take the tape off to look at it. I always think it's a good idea, especially at the cost of these things, as soon as you get it. Now, I'm guilty of not doing this myself, but I think as soon as you get it, you ought to take it apart and take a close look at it and make sure that they didn't strip any of these screws out, send you a bad piece that, you know, shouldn't have passed QC, and then try to take care of that before too much time passes by. You might still be able to return it, but other than that, I don't like these screws very much either. For one, we have to change bits. Now, at least it's a Phillips. I'm using a Phillips 1. That seems to fit the best. But these are very delicate screws. The thread's delicate. The part that the tip of the screwdriver goes into is pretty delicate and can be easily stripped. So don't tighten these down as much as you can, or you will strip right through that. Now I'm going to again start to hold this together because we're going to be removing the last 4 screws. 2 screws, I'm sorry. Okay, so do a little bit of organizing here. And get this stuff out of the way too. Okay. now I know that the springs and balls are pointing downward because the texture plate is machined on the underside of this top surface here. So if I just place this on the table again, gently, that top piece will lift off. You can see the machining in there. And then we have a spring and a ball, spring and a ball. Difference between this and the Chenyu is instead of 2, you have 6 choices on that one. Other than that, it's pretty similar. We'll just dump these balls and springs out too. Give you a closer look at that. A little bit dirty. Sometimes that actually helps you define where the edges are. Very small ball bearing in there. And I think that's pretty much everything I have to say about the assembly. We can now put it back together. So while we have it apart, before we put it back together again, one of the problems with this is that when it is riding down these tracks, when everything's assembled, of course the other track would be on the other side, but if you can see, well, it's not an easy thing to point out this way, I guess, but when it's assembled, there's just too much of a gap. There's too much of a gap between this plate, when it's all put together, the space between this, magnets, the space between this edge and this edge is too far apart. And unfortunately, it allows this thing to wobble back and forth on the inside, and like this. And that's why you have so much slop when it's fully extended. And that's only one of the reasons that they put magnets on this. The magnets don't serve much of a haptic purpose at all. What they do help with is assembly and disassembly, and when the whole thing's put together, I'll show you when we finish up, when you slide it together, that keeps it from being sloppy when it's in the resting position. It keeps it looking nice and feeling nice and everything, but as soon as you slide it away from that resting position and those magnets, that's when it starts to get all wonky and wobbly on you. So it's like the magnets were added as just a way to, I don't know, give it a nice finishing spot. Hard to say. But let's put this puppy back together. Okay, we're just going to sort of go in this reverse of what we did to take it apart. And we'll start here. All I have to do is put the springs and balls back in those 2 holes. These are ceramic balls. That's just what I've tried in it so far. I haven't tried anything else. Seems to be working satisfactorily enough. Is that a word? Satisfactorily? It works in a satisfactory manner for me. Okay, let's give that a quick test. That works. I'll put those screws in. It's important to know these screws are longer than the screws for this. Okay, remember, just enough to tighten it down, because as soon as you get it tight, it wants to skip out of that, and when you do that, it'll damage that little plus shape socket on the head of the screw. Okay, yeah, I'm going to keep a close eye on these. I don't think I'm going to put the tape back on. I want to see how well they hold up, or if they're going to vibrate loose. If they do vibrate loose, I'll end up putting a little bit of Loctite 222. Loctite 222. That's a temporary purple Loctite that I recommend for all of you, because it's not as strong as the Loctite blue, which is 242. Okay, that part is back together and working. And we can put the springs and balls back into these. And then the balls. And then, this is the convenient part, the magnets line up forgot which way they went there. That puts them right in place. Now maybe I could demonstrate a little bit better. No, maybe not. See the space between these two things that I'm holding on to, the side pieces, when it's all put together, it's not as close in as it should be. If it was a little bit tighter in, actually had they machined this white Teflon piece better, had they made it a little bit wider, it wouldn't wobble like it does. But now that that's put back together, all you have to do is take this and try to drop it as straight down on top of this as you can. And hold the whole thing together. Sounds like it's working. Keep squeezing it together and then replace the screws. These magnets are right here, so sometimes they want to steal your screw from you. Let's just do one at a time. Okay, now you can stop squeezing it. That's what she said. Sorry. And the last screw. Get in there. Bugger. Okie dokie. There we are, back together again, now without the Teflon tape, which was located here, covering up the screws. It becomes a little bit more sloppy here. Where's the Chenyu at? The Chenyu is a little bit guilty of that too. But overall, when this is fully extended, let me hold it down on the table here, there's very little play. Let's try that with this one once. See what I mean? So, if these two plates were a little bit closer together, or if that post that runs up into there was a bit fatter, wouldn't have that. But I'm going to keep it like that. I want to keep an eye on these screws and see if they come loose. I think that covers all the bases. Let me just ponder that for a moment. Yeah, I wish they'd had better screws than that. Better screws than that. It doesn't take long for it to get scratched up. Look at that. I had it like this a little bit earlier, but I haven't used this a whole lot yet. Certainly tonight's the first night without any tape on it. So well, that's expected. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching. Bye.